Hi folks, David Willis here. I just thought I'd quickly explain a bit about the biofeedback range method of marketing. There's been quite a bit of discussion on Facebook recently, one of the real estate groups, about the biofeedback range, how it works, people saying we don't like it, it's illegal, all of these sorts of things. It's not illegal. I love it. I've sold 11 properties this month and all 11 have been from the biofeedback range. And apart from very, very sparingly using auction, it's the only way that I market property. Now, the way that I explain it to sellers, because you do get objections of course, I don't want to sell for the bottom price and all of those sorts of things. There's documentation that you use, that you get the buyer to sign an annexure, stating they understand about the biofeedback range of properties on the market at that, and that the seller is under no obligation to accept or counter any offer. Okay, so that's something that is attached as an annexure to the offer and acceptance form. It goes a bit deeper than that, and I won't go into that on this video because of time. But I just want to explain something to you, that something that I use with sellers when I'm sitting down with a seller, explaining the biofeedback range, and I'm getting objections like we don't like it, or whatever it happens to be. So this is what I do. So you've got the buyer. This is their budget. It might be, say, for example, 400,000. So they're out with agents, looking at houses, looking through home opens, doing their internet searches from 300 to 400, or 350 to 400, sorry, can't find what they want. So they come home and decide, right, we're going to look a bit higher. Up goes their budget. So they probably do that a couple of times. Maybe they go to 420, 430, who knows. But anyway, they'll look at properties, they'll start casting the net a bit wider. And this is where the biofeedback range comes into its own, because when you've got a seller and they want to list it at a fixed price, say for example, seller, and they're at, let's just pluck a figure, 460. That's what they want to list at. Okay, so you got 460,000 on a house. Now, after a little while, they start to think, okay, we can't get an offer, therefore the agent says, we've got to bring the price down. Okay, may sell, may not, but if it doesn't, then off they go again. Now, in the initial phase, the buyer here is looking here and going, we're not going to spend that much. That's way too much. We're not going to bother with that. So we're not even going to inquire about it. They're inquiring about properties 350 to 400, hoping they can get that. Then they might go 400 to 450 or somewhere like that. Now what happens over time, the buyers come up, the sellers and their expectations come down. So now we've got smaller gap. Buyer starts looking and saying, right, that's not that far away now, but they also know that this property's been on the market for quite some time. So then in a buyer's mind, we all know what happens. It's been on the market for a long time, maybe we can knock them down even further. We're going to go in hard because this house is a stale listing, so we're going in hard. So when you go, say for example, 400 to 460, in the biofeedback range, these people are thinking, do you know what, that's in the fours, it's worth looking at. We can at least investigate our options and our alternatives and just see what comes out of it. So they're in this house, they're looking at it and they love it. Now this is where I use it in my negotiating with buyers, and that is, they will say, okay, we'll pay 410. Now, if you've been speaking to buyers and you're qualifying your buyers, you know which properties they've been through, or you know the price range they've been through. So you say to them, okay, well look, you want to offer 410. Now you've already told me that it's better than a house listed at 430. It's better than that. Not quite as good as one listed at 445, but it's better than this. So how can you offer less than something you already know is a superior property? It's better than this, not quite as good as that. So I'm thinking maybe you should be going in here. 430, 435. How do you feel about that? And you just let them finish how they feel. Okay, they may go in at 410. And that's their prerogative. We've got an offer and that's the whole point. We've got something now to negotiate with. But when you say to somebody, you've seen this house and you say it's better than that, but you want to offer less, how does that work? I mean, I can be pretty blunt with people, and quite often I'll say to a buyer, you pick your targets, of course, as we all do, but quite often I'll say, you're just trying to pitch a house, aren't you? And have a bit of a laugh, and they'll go, oh yeah, we are. Okay, well I'm not going to let you, because I work for the seller. So what I suggest is we go in around the 435, and I can't promise anything, but I'll see how we go. Fill out the documentation to state that the house is, that the seller's under no obligation to counter or accept any offer. They understand the process, and you kick off here. Whereas these people were looking here, and they're here already, which ordinarily they were going to pay somewhere in that range anyway. You know, when you look at it, they were going to end up paying that much anyway. And I've had numerous sales where properties have been listed at, say, 380 to 440, sold for 420, 425 was another one. Here, you list at 400 to 600, oh sorry, 400 to 460, you're getting buyers from 350 to 500. That's your buy pool. 350 to 400 to 500, whereas ordinarily you'd have 450 to 500. Completely eliminating all of these people when you can have a sale right here. I also use a spreadsheet that I've got on recent sales as an example for sellers, just to let them know, and I'll leave them with a copy. Okay, 380 to 440 again, sold for 425, days on market 7. 265 to 295, sold for 295, days on market 11. 315 to 335, 290 to 340, sold for 335 at the first time open. 150 to 180, sold for 170, days on market 15. 190, 380 to 220 to 420, 64 days on market, sold for 420. This sheet really is the convincing thing. Average days on market, and I have an average days on market here, which I've for some reason blanked out, but average days on market 53.8 days. Now compared to the average in Bunbury, I'm sure it's a bit different in Perth and all other areas, but you get an average. And when you're talking days of 7 days, 11 days, 41 days, things like that, so it really does work to great effect. As I say, the documentation that you need, there's an explanation that I give to sellers. There's also an explanation here of various methods and how they work, with the buyer feedback range. There's the buyer feedback range buyer information sheet, which we give to buyers when they come through home opens or when they view the property. There's a buyer feedback disclosure statement that they sign and the agent signs, stating that the seller is seeking feedback from the marketplace as to the likely selling price for this property. The sellers have therefore chosen to offer the property for sale in the buyer feedback range, which may be adjusted so as to determine its likely selling price based on market feedback provided by prospective buyers. Now, during this period, the sellers invite prospective buyers to submit offers, however, are under no obligation to accept such offers, and there it goes. So, if it comes to a counter offer, and it comes to stalemate where the buyer won't come up, the seller won't come down, we then use the offer response form, which is from the seller, signed by the seller and by the agent, stating, "We thank you for making the offer to purchase the above mentioned property. However, at this stage in the marketing, we choose to allow more time for the marketing to provide feedback on the likely selling price within the buyer feedback range. At this stage, I am/we are not willing to accept an offer at," and you insert the price. That way, the seller hasn't rejected the offer. We go back to the buyer and we say to the buyer, "Sorry, seller has signed the response form. They're not prepared to accept the offer at whatever it happens to be. What do you want to do?" Now the buyer's got two choices. They can either reject the offer and say, "Okay, well, no, don't worry about it. We'll just go look somewhere else," or they'll increase their offer. They realise it's in writing. We're not prepared to accept your offer at so and so. So they only have two options. Now, if they choose to end the contract and withdraw from that contract, then the seller hasn't rejected the offer. Therefore, we can still continue to market in the buyer feedback range. As soon as you get a seller to reject a certain price, you can no longer advertise at that price, and that's the power of using the correct documentation. A buyer comes back and has a ping at you later, nothing you can do because the buyer rejected the offer. So it's their choice, not the seller's choice to reject the offer. So you can continue marketing, and that's the difference between the buyer inquiry range, where there is no documentation, there's nothing governing anything, and this buyer feedback range, which is put together and is followed to a format and to a process. So I hope that answered some of your questions. And if you've got any other queries, just certainly feel free to give me a call on 0418 931 941 or flick me an email at david@lighthouserealty.com.au. Thanks very much.